Can't no part, all you know is kick back, run for me, back, get back, 911. Somebody's son did die, we need police on dispatch. You be with me, nigga, why is you mad? Come and get your bag, everything's on, I'll be.
So I've been meaning to watch this video for a little minute, I ain't gonna lie. This is the most unethical hooper in basketball. We gonna see what's going on. Shai is on the thumbnail, so I'm guessing they talking about Shai is the most unethical hooper of all time, which is crazy to me. I want to be on record. I always said since Shai was in Kentucky that I always said he was going to be raw. I always said he was like that. I always said he played like James Harden at Kentucky. I always said he was better than Quade Green. All this, man. I always said this, y'all.
The ethical hooper.
I'm on
a
record.
player who is true to the game. Plays
On
basketball
Twitter.
the way it was meant to be played. No
Smart
flopping,
man.
no stat padding, just pure hoops. And the opposite of the unethical hooper. The player who relies on foul baiting and gimmicks and a barrage of free throws to fill the stat sheet. And right now, there is an unethical hooper among us. Well, at least that's the reputation Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is building at the moment, with some fans claiming his historic season has been propped up with foul hunting and an absurd free throw volume manufactured from gimmicks and tricks that are a disservice to the game.
You cannot guard Shai. That's what y'all gotta realize. Y'all can't guard Shai, bro. Shai, if you ever hoop for real, bro, you know Shai is somebody you cannot guard, gang. Or maybe you've never played anybody at that type of, I mean, he might be 1-on-1, but you've got to play somebody that's kind of like that, where it's kind of like his counter isn't a planned counter. His counter is off literally exactly what you do. He'll do some herky-jerky, weird move off you, and he's still so shifty on everything because the way he move, like, I don't know how to explain it, bro. I never had to guard him, but you could just see it. And he can shoot the ball too, and he can get fouled from you. Like, people just can't guard this man.
But if Shai is a foul grifter, a free throw merchant, then I've got some bad news about some of your all-time favorite players.
Coming up with a point I made, hopefully.
The 25 NBA MVP race continues to grow closer and closer. Fans across the league are finding any and every hair to split to pick a side between two players having historically great seasons. The impossibly good Serbian gunning for his 4th MVP, or the superstar guard looking to break a 6-year trophy
another goal
had on the award. And with a race this tight, deciding the most valuable player in the league may just boil down to the smallest, seemingly insignificant things. Like free throws. Now, basketball isn't much of a thinking man's sport, but leave it up to us to create a philosophical divide amongst the type of players we like and don't like. On one side, you have the locally sourced, all-natural, ethical hoopers. And on the other, you have players who...
First of all, LeBron started a lot of the flopping stuff in the league, guys. He started a lot of flopping stuff in the league, guys. We gotta stop it. Jason Tatum, there was a point where he was foul baiting a lot too, and especially in the playoffs, we see it. All these guys, I have nothing to say, but these guys are real buckets, though. What? One of the best scorers of all time, regardless of free throws or not. Finna be one of the best point guards all the time. Finna be one of the best bigs all the time. Finna be one of the best Knicks of all time. Finna be a top 20 to 15 point guard of all time, maybe even bigger. Top 10 point guard of all time. And Jimmy Butler, the new member of my Golden State Warriors.
Essentially rely on a bag of tricks and gimmicks to navigate games and get free buckets from the line. Do I believe basketball actually has any sort of moral code?
Jimmy's another Hall of Famer.
The idea of a morally superior basketball player seemed like a joke until it entered the vocabulary of head coaches around the league, making it about as real as anything else. But there is something distinctly different about these two styles of play, both aesthetically and productively. The real question is how reliant on free throws these alleged unethical hoopers are, and are they truly earning their trips to the free throw line, or are they tampering the game with their bag of tricks? And a question we all need to consider: does Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and his game even warrant the label of unethical? Now, one way to approach this question is simply by looking at the rate at which players are attempting free throws. When looking at a metric like free throw attempts per field goal attempt, SGA ranks 24th among all players this season, behind players like Trae Young, Damian Lillard, Anthony Davis, Giannis, and even an aging James Harden, who was able to escape the claims of foul baiting and stat padding years ago. So just purely looking at the rate at which players are drawing fouls, SGA isn't doing anything out of the ordinary. But to better understand Shai's scoring profile, we need to look at the kinds of fouls Shai draws and where they're coming from. Most shooting fouls don't happen out here, they happen in here. Players that stay aggressive and drive the ball more tend to put more pressure on the defense and draw more fouls. This is why a player like Dwayne Wade, for example, who spent his prime years attempting 10 free throws a game, was never associated with any foul hunting. He earned his free throws. This season, the player who drives to the basket far more than anyone else in the entire league is Shai. In fact, nearly half of all of his free throw attempts are generated through his drives to the basket. And again, if we look at the rate these drive leaders are drawing fouls on their drives, Shai is getting calls at an average.
Bro, you ever think, bro, these videos like this, I really like the videos they used to show us on the little TV in school when you know they turn lights off in the room and they roll the little TV in there and they trying to show us something to talk about something we was talking about in class. That's all these videos are,
rate, far from what you might see from other superstars both past and present. Which brings us to a real point of contention when it comes to SGA and his historic season.
He's ethical,
one of the
bro.
odd and universally accepted aspects of NBA basketball is that superstars get calls.
Smart
this
man.
has been a thing since the inception of the league. Once you transcend that highest tier of player, you essentially get the benefit of the doubt, even at times when you shouldn't.
He never controlled it, Michael. He never
picked it up and then he took
but he didn't touch it with both hands.
Yeah,
That's the
he did.
thing. You think so, Michael? 55 hits, 2 to come. Michael, I didn't see 2 hands on him, Michael.
Yeah.
But I believe you.
You did.
But I believe you.
We know this,
But I'll
and we
believe
accept
you.
it. And
And
Shai
I'll believe
is a
you.
superstar, except he hasn't consistently gotten these phantom superstar calls this season. Since the introduction of tracking data back in 1996, there have been 36 instances of a player averaging at least 30 points per game for a season. And when ranking these 36 individual seasons according to free throw rates, SGA this season ranks 26th, behind guards like Harden, Wade, Iverson, and Luka. But again, most shooting fouls should come from shots taken in the paint or around the rim. Of course, players do get clipped on threes and long jumpers and draw fouls by other means, but really it's getting downhill that tends to generate trips to the line. And specifically among guards, Shai gets into the paint and attempts more shots from inside than any other prolific scorer since the introduction of tracking data. This season, Shai is attempting nearly 54% of all of his shots from within 10 feet of the basket. Meanwhile, players like Kobe, Iverson, Luka, Harden, and Dame all have multiple seasons where they weren't getting into the paint nearly as much and still yielded.
That's because Harden was shooting step back threes and Kobe was shooting middies. So that's not necessarily in the paint for real.
Far more trips to the free throw line. Shai is statistically the most aggressive volume scoring guard in recent NBA history. He takes the most shots that historically should earn trips to the free throw line, and there isn't a single metric that suggests his free throws are inflated or unwarranted. Of the previously mentioned 36 seasons of 30 points or more a game, the average number of free throws taken per game across the board is 10. This season, Shai is averaging just 8.3. So, if anything, considering his usage and his play style, Shai is actually not getting enough calls. If we've learned anything from witnessing the last decade of scoring maestros, it's that this is just the nature of great scorers. They're hard to stop. They force the defense to get physical, they get you in positions you don't want to be in, overreacting, reaching, even taking gambles hoping it yields you a stop or a turnover, when more often than not, it's just going to end up in another trip to the free throw line. And on an abstract scale of basketball morality, I don't think SGA plays an unethical style of hoops. I think he's a better and more prolific scorer than some fans are willing to give him credit for. He's not relying on free throws to get his numbers. When compromised, the defense is relying on fouling him just to slow him down. Most of Shai's drawn shooting fouls look something like this, where he drives into the lane and inexplicably rips through the defender's arms to put up a shot. It is damn near impossible to predict, and it works almost every time a defender cuts him off or puts a body on him. And we've seen this before with James Harden, a free trip to the line disguised as a shot attempt. In fact, this is like the 2.0 version.
Harden used to really grab your arm and Shai kind of come up in your, like, he do it like a little bit smoother. Like, he do it a little bit smoother. So, like, I don't know how to explain it. The way Shai do it, it's a lot smoother. Harden, he gonna grab your arm and he gonna do it real strong, and Shai just gonna gracefully. Feel me? You gonna foul him, bro. Like, I don't know how to explain it, bro.
Of Harden's rip through, because it does a much
but everybody
better job
got something like that in their bag,
rather than an attempt to just draw a foul. And I think that's where most fans get frustrated with this kind of basketball. It's not necessarily the outcome of the move, but rather the intent. Because we know he's not.
That's a crazy move. That's a crazy move he just hit on Jaden McDaniels.
Necessarily the outcome of the move, but rather the intent. Because
how do you get that off?
Necessarily the outcome of the move, but rather the intent. Because we know he's not actually trying to score the ball here. He is purely looking for a foul, and he knows he can get these calls. And you could call this unethical hoops, or you could call it smart basketball. Kobe Bryant was notorious for making opposing players pay.
That's what I told my homie. I said, hey, bro, Kobe used to do this. Paul Pierce used to do this. I'm sure Mike did it a little bit, but I know just from what I watched, Kobe and Paul Pierce did this for sure. Big men, all big men did this. You were taught to do this as a big man. Up fake, they're going to jump into you. Then you want to go up as they coming down, come into them and get that N1. People been doing this though.
For bad defense, drawing fouls for the sake of drawing fouls.
It's just everywhere
and when
now.
He did it, it wasn't viewed as his fault for taking advantage of the rules. It was the defender's fault for falling for the move in the first place. If you don't want to get baited, don't fall for the bait.
And Kobe actually,
as some half decent.
The difference is though, Kobe trying to get fouled just enough to get the foul and get the shot off and shoot like a real shot. A lot of times nowadays, people, I mean, they trying to get hit. They trying to get hit for real. Are they really trying to get hit? You feel me? So then they can just throw the ball, or they just getting hit like Kobe is, but they not trying to, they're not trying to hit the shot for real.
Basketball player once said. Take this play here, where he gets the defense on his hip, out of position, and reaching in to disrupt the shot. Now, Shai is baiting the foul here, and he's going to get it every time, because he already beat the defense 3 steps ago. Or this play here, where Shai has a 7-footer in a mismatch, feeds him the bait, and Markkanen falls for it, leading to the shooting foul. Some fans may say this is an act of basketball sin, intentionally jumping into the defender instead of just pulling up off the step back. But I don't see it that way. You've got a 7-footer on an island with no help guarding the league's leading scorer, and you leave your feet on a pump fake. Shai isn't playing unethical hoops, he's taking advantage of bad defense. All the great scorers knew this, and they all took advantage of it. As much as we resented the tricks James Harden would deploy throughout his prime scoring years, it's worth asking the question. Was it the foul baiting and free throws that allowed him to be the scorer he was? Or was he such a great scorer that he could bend the defense to his will whenever he wanted to? Same thing goes for a player like Joel Embiid. If the gimmicks added an extra 10% to his production, would we concede that he was in fact a historic scorer even if he had 90% of the production, but he did it ethically? Among high-volume scorers of this century, players who averaged at least 30 points per game since 2000, according to this idea of honest scoring, 2016 Stephen Curry would be the most ethical scorer, averaging
the GOAT.
30 points per game with just 5 free throw attempts. And on a scale of free throw reliance, 2025 Shai is far closer to Steph than he is to countless other all-time great scoring seasons. If SGA's game falls into the category of unethical hooper, then so does Kobe's, and Luka's, and Dame's, and Iverson's, and Durant's, and all of our favorite all-time great scorers. It is an unfair label on one of the best individual seasons in recent NBA history, and it is objectively not true. And if none of that changed your mind, then maybe this will. Here is every single season in modern NBA history where a player averaged at least 25 points per game. 354 individual seasons since 1980. And they are graphed in terms of scoring average and free throw attempts per game. The further right a player is, the more free throws they attempted. The further up a player is, the more points they averaged. So way off to the right are the seasons of all-time high free throw attempts, and where you'll find most historic scoring seasons, like some Embiid seasons, some LeBron seasons, Jordan's highest scoring seasons, Luka, Harden, Shaq. Even the pure bucket getters like Durant and McGrady often found themselves at the line during the peak of their powers. So where does Shai's 2025 season land? It's right here. The 18th highest scoring season in modern NBA history, while attempting just the 142nd most free throws per game. And that, my friends, is some honest, homegrown, ethical hoops.
I'ma fuck with you.
Can't no part, all you know is kick back, run up on me back, get back, 911. Somebody's son did die, we need police on dispatch.